Hey everyone, welcome back to Lisa's Book Nook. We're reading The Scourge by A.G. Hanley, and we're on chapter 2. I listened for the cries of the creatures. My hand still stuck out in front of me. I need to move to get to the caves with everyone else. I map out the best way to get there in my head. Run along the edge of the clearing. Avoid being trampled or knocked into the fire. I break for it, and someone grabs my hand. Perry. Come on. He jams my arm under his and drags me around the fire. People careen off us, yelling to douse the flames, find children, gather supplies. Someone shouts for help, but I can't stop with Perry towing me along. Fennel! Elin yells, grabbing my free arm. Perry's gone before I can thank him. Where's Aloe? I shout. Over here. Elin pulls me away from the spitting, hissing bonfire. Mother, I've got her. Get to the caves. Aloe's voice is calm but weary. I'll be there shortly. I hang on Elin's arm as we run. People jostle around us. The trail from the clearing to the mouth of the cave is endless. Almost there, Elin pants. I hear her cry off the path. So weak, I doubt anyone else can hear it. Someone's hurt. Go on, I'll be right behind you. Then, go! I push him and plow into the bushes. I could fall on whoever it is if I move fast, so I creep forward, sweeping my arms in front of me. A bush gropes me, tearing my skin. I hear the moan again, just in front of me. Fennel! Thank the stars! It's Willow, one of the elders. I lift her up gently and set her on her feet like a toddler. Clasping her frail body to me, I stagger back to the path. Willow whimpers in pain, and I slow to loosen my grip. Then I hear them, crashing through the forest behind us, shrieking as they come. I start to run, supporting Willow, trying to stay on the path. Hands seize me, and I cry out. I've got her! Fox yells. He sweeps Willow into his arms and sprints forward, his feet pounding the path. I run too, terrified. I trip and fall. People call to me from the mouth of the cave, giving me a sound to aim for. I hear the flesh eaters just behind me now. Then warm arms and bodies catch me. I'm safe. Elin finds me, and we hold each other. The people are quiet, listening to the creatures groan in the darkness outside the cave. Aloe's voice rises above their hungry cries. Come, she directs us, and we do, following her through the passageway to the steel black cavity that will be our home until the Scourge leaves again. Callie and I huddle together against the wall, shivering in our bedrolls. Groups of people around the main cavern confer in hushed voices, comparing escape stories as they warm themselves at small fires. It was a long, mostly sleepless night. The Lofties usually give us more warning when the Scourge is near. It's their part of our uneasy bargain. We provide them with small game and skins produce from our garden, and access to water. In return, they allow us to cut down certain trees for wood, and they warn us when the Scourge is coming, so we can hide out in the caves. What they never do is offer to share the safety of their airy homes. The caves are safe. The flesh eaters don't come in. They don't seem to like dark, confined spaces any more than we do, but we can't leave either until the Scourge is gone. They only move on when they've exhausted their food source, the animals and humans who rely on the fresh water to survive. Groundlings have tried over the years, but we've never been able to find another source of water. It's risky to explore very far from the caves, because we never know when the flesh eaters will come, so we're stuck with the Lofties with the Scourge. I hate the caves, Callie says, and I hate the fleshies. We never even got to dance. I put my arms around her. We'll dance again when they're gone. I know Bear was going to ask you. You should have seen his face while you talked to that Lofty. She pulls the bedroll up under her chins. We couldn't believe it when you went over there. You do the strangest things sometimes. Who was he, anyway? My keeper, Perry. Perry? What kind of bird is that? Short for peregrine. Oh, well, what was it like? I don't know. I barely spoke to him. I think of his calloused hands and his musical voice. I won't tell her I asked him to dance. What did he look like? Tall, fair-haired, feathers sticking out all over the place, looking down his nose at everyone. You know, like a lofty. They all pretty much look the same. Ugh, I think my toes are frostbitten. She grabs my leg. The three are here. We jump to our feet, and I feel Aloe take my hand. Sable, the oldest of the three, speaks to me, his voice splintering in desiccated wood, or like desiccated wood. He's been on the council for as long as I can remember. Some call him Sable the Unstable, because he totters when he walks, and because there's been quite speculation about how sound his mind is these days. Aloe said his time on the council is probably limited, but he would stay on until he settles into her new role. I understand you rescued my mother last night, Fennel, Sable says. Fox really did. How is Willow? Alive, thanks to you, he says. Aloe squeezes my hand and my cheeks warm. He continues in a clearer voice. We were only able to bring in a little water last night, so I'm afraid we'll need you to collect 3 sacks today. I'm sorry to ask you to make more than one trip on your first day among the Scourge, but we have no choice. 3 sacks, another man repeats, emphasizing each word. It's Adder, the last of the council. His voice is raspy and harsh. I have always disliked it. I decided I didn't like Adder when I heard he was unhappy that Aloe was chosen by the people to be one of the 3. And don't let that lofty keeper talk you into any more than their equal share of the water. They'll not get 1 drop more than their due. Aloe interrupts him. She knows her duty. Are you ready, Fennel? I nod. She embraces me and whispers in my ear, Don't forget, never forget, you are protected. The Scourge can't harm you. Remember that when you're afraid. I'm afraid now. Then remember it now. She leads me to the passage that will take me back to the mouth of the cave. People touch me as I walk, murmuring good luck. Elin clings to me, followed by Callie. Her tears moisten my cheek. Here, Fennel. Bear's voice is even rougher than usual. He presses something silky into my hand, his fingers lingering on mine. The foot of a rabbit, for luck. Its charm left over from the old days before the fall. Then his hand is gone and everyone is gone, and I stand alone in the passageway. I start walking, rehearsing in my mind what I'll do when I leave the caves. As Aloe taught me, take the path to the clearing, walk along the edge of the clearing, find the sled track, and follow it down to the water hole, where the sled waits. I go over the number of paces it should take to complete each part of my trip, repeating them to be sure I remember. Then I wipe my mind clean. I try not to think of the cries of the creatures the night before. I try not to think of the many stories I've heard about flesh-eaters tearing apart their victims, or the agonizing transformation into one of them, half human, half dead. Instead, I focus on the cool, lumpy rock under my hand, or the musty smell of the passage, or how many steps I have left until I reach the mouth of the cave. Anything else, but it's impossible. My heart is a desperate animal, smashing against my rib cage. My shivering now has nothing to do with the cold. I sing, another trick Aloe taught me. But the closer I get to the mouth of the cave, the slower I walk and the softer I sing. Then I stop walking and singing altogether, trying to work up the courage to take the last few steps necessary to reach the sunlight. Something's thrashing through the forest, coming closer. I hear shrieking, like the dying people of my imagination. I tuck the rabbit's foot into my pocket and tug a scarf Aloe gave me up over my mouth and nose, preparing for the stench. For a moment, I wonder if my protection will hold, but I push the thought away. It's the gift of our sightlessness, as I've always been told. I think of Elin huddled in the gloom of the caves, eating the salty dried meat, waiting for his water ration. That does it. I take a deep breath and I step outside. The creatures surge around me. Their howls pierce me. Even through the barrier of the scarf, I can smell their putrid breath. Something brushes my sleeve and I cry out, wrapping my arms tightly around my body like a shroud. What if I'm not protected? What if everything I've been told about my sightlessness, everything I've believed about myself, isn't true? The scourge will consume me, as they have so many others, or worse, I'll become like one of them, only knowing hunger, thirst, and the yearning for flesh. I yank the scarf down. It's suffocating. I wait, shuddering for biting mouths and tearing hands to find me. Fennel! The word drifts down from the trees. A long moment passes before I can speak, and then my voice shakes. Perry? I'm right above you. He sounds steady calm. You're all right. Stay still. Let me give you some space. Arrows zip across the bow. 2 harrowing screams are followed by 2 thumps. There, they backed up a bit. Can you walk? I grew up in the forest. I know every path and the position of every tree and bush. But I feel lost now, like someone moved all the familiar landmarks overnight. I take a step in what I hope is the right direction. The creatures follow, shifting to surround me again. My eyes sting from the smell of their rotting flesh. Singing under my breath, I take another cautious step. I don't want to stumble or fall. I don't want to do anything that might draw more of them to me. Watch yourself. There are bodies here, Perry says. Step a little to your left. That's it. He follows me through the trees above, using the Lofties' well-maintained wooden walkways. They clear the lower branches up to the height of 2 grown men, so the walkways are too far up for humans, and more importantly, half-dead humans, to reach by climbing. There are more creatures coming, hurtling towards me through the trees. Panic almost takes me again. I need to focus on something, anything other than the flesh-eaters pressing in. I'll call to Perry. They're keeping their distance? Yes, but if they don't, I'll take out a few more. Keep walking. You're almost to the clearing now. It's to your left. I know where it is. I might be terrified and disoriented, but I don't need a Lofty to give me directions in the forest. I hear creatures dart at me, stopping right before they reach me. Others pace alongside. If I were to run, they would chase, quick as the fleetest animals. In the rare moments they're quiet. I hear their tongues searching. The sighted say many of the creatures don't really have mouths anymore, only gaping, seeping holes in what were once their very human faces. My stomach contracts, pushing up the little breakfast I managed to eat. I put my hands on my knees, and saliva pools in my mouth. Have you ever heard of a tiger? Perry asked. I swallow hard. A what? Hold still. An arrow whistles by, followed by another thump. A tiger. It's an animal. He sounds relaxed, like we're sitting and chatting over a meal, instead of having a semi-shouted conversation from the ground of the trees, overheard by the creatures and who knows how many Lofties. No, I don't think so. They were big cats, amazing hunters, graceful and beautiful, and they had a wild scream that would put the fleshies to shame. I wince as a creature shrieks at my side. That's hard to imagine. For me as well. His voice was grim. Are you able to see colors at all? No, but I've heard some colors are warmer, like red, and some cooler, like blue, with some others in between. So that's how I picture them, as degrees of heat. It snowed a few seconds ago. It snowed a few seasons ago. I guess the soft, frosty flakes must be blue. To Callie's everlasting amusement. Well, tigers would be warm, like a fire you don't want to get too close to. They're orange with black marks all over their bodies. In ancient times, the tiger was chosen by the gods to protect humans. He did it so well he was given 3 marks across his forehead to represent great battles he won against 3 evil animals. When the tiger won a final time, saving the human race, the gods placed a mark down his forehead, intersecting the others. They formed a word, king, in the ancient people's language. The word could be seen on all tigers from then on. I start walking again, following the line of trees circling the clearing. A branch creaks above my head. The Lofties leave space between some trees as fire breaks. Perry must have swung across the gap. I wish the gods would send an animal to fight the Scourge, I say. How do you know about tigers? My mother told me, my foster mother. She knew a lot of stories from before and after the fall. Stories about animals and strange tales of our ancestors who lived in the city, in homes as tall as the tops of mountain peaks and taller. Our teacher told us about the city, I say. He said it was a nasty, crowded place full of evil people. He told us that's where the Scourge was born. Mother never said any of that, only that it was large and lit up at night by specks of light, like mists of fireflies. You said she knew those stories. Is she? He's silent. I'm sorry. How did it happen? I hear him load his bow, another thump. The creatures howl in response. The sled track's in front of you, he said. I know that, but I don't say it this time. I'm amazed I made it this far. I was very close to losing my nerve and running back to the cave, until I heard Perry call to me from the trees. His arrows discouraged the flesh-eaters, and his story about the tiger distracted me. I'm beginning to understand why Aloe insists on our keepers are important. I reach out to find the smooth wooden rails of the sled track, praying I don't touch any of the creatures hovering around me. I'll drag the sled and heavy oilskin sacks of water up the steep tracks while doing my best to ignore the enraged creatures. This will be the most physically difficult part of the work. I can't pull more than 2 bags in the sled each time. So I have to make 3 trips today. 3 sacks of water for us and 3 for the Lofties. Aloe said there will be more fleshies by the waterhole. The air is still temperate for summer, but I'm sweating like the sun's been breathing on me for hours. I wipe my face, trying to pull myself together. Are you all right? Perry asks. No. You've done well so far, he says. Not many of the Sightless are brave enough to take more than a few steps among the flesh-eaters for the first time. Shrike told me one woman refused to do her duty at all, and the people suffered for years because of her cowardice. I've heard of this Groundling. She took her own life. I'm ashamed for her, but I bristle at his words. How dare a Lofty criticize any Groundling from the perfect safety of his trees, much less a Groundling who's sightless and faces the Scourge alone? I'm about to tell him what he can do with his praise when I remember Callie's warning. I doubt any Lofty would kill their one source for fresh water, but I don't want to tempt Perry. I swallow my anger, grimacing at the bitter taste. I stalk away, following the sled track, leaving him well behind me in the trees. Under the low moans of the creatures, I hear gentle waves breaking on the shore and a bird trilling in the forest. Others join it, creating a joyful chorus of avian voices. For a moment, the world feels peaceful and safe, but only for a moment. The flesh-eaters swarm around me. The small group that followed me through the forest was like nothing compared to this onslaught. The first crack of lightning before an electrical storm. Their rage and their hunger gripped me. I fall to my knees, my hands over my ears. One time I asked Aloe why she still fears the creature after all these years she's walked among them. She told me she no longer fears the Scourge. She fears her own fear. Now I understand. I curl up on the muddy ground and drift away for a time, lost in a place darker than the deepest, blackest cave. After some time I hear something other than the terrible screams. Perry shouting my name over and over. I ignore him. The cave in my mind is safe, but he keeps calling. Go away, and leave me. He doesn't. I have to get up. For Eland, Aloe, Callie, Bear, Fox, Rose, and her baby, I hear the pleas of my people, each one in turn, trapped in the caves, waiting for me to return with their life-sustaining water, relying on me. I can't fail. All these thoughts echo in my mind, and somehow I'm standing again. Fennel, are you all right? I raise my hand and stagger down the slope to the water's edge, the creatures following me like a fetid fog. Perry keeps shooting. The thumps mean one less nightmare I'll have tonight, but I shrink from the thought of the bodies piling up, bodies that were once human. I grope along the end of the track until my hand finds the sled. Inside are 2 oilskin sacks. I feel them, secure the tops, and row them up into the sled. Then I shuffle the front to secure myself in the harness. The sacks were made to hold as much water as I can pull with the sled, but I still struggle. When I rehearsed with Aloe, I was fresh and unafraid, not exhausted and petrified as I am now. I pull the sled forward a few feet and have to stop to rest. I try again, straining as hard as I can in the harness, but the sled barely budges. If I can't make it up the hill, I'll have to unload a sack, which means I'll also have to make twice as many trips as I now face. I put my hands on my knees again and choke back tears. Perry calls to me. Finn, listen to me. You can do this. You have the strength. Focus on taking a few steps forward, just a few. Then you can rest. Pull the sled. I pull. That's it. And again. I pull again. I do what he says and focus on the next few steps. Step, pull, step, pull. The sled inches up the hill, the water sloshing in the sacks behind me. I pray they don't fall out. Good, Finn, very good. Not much further. Bring the sled to the end of the track. I'll lower the ropes. Guided by his voice, I reach up for the ropes and tie them to the sacks. He hoists them into the trees. The Lofties will deliver our portion to us at the mouth of the cave after nightfall, when it's safer. The flesh-eaters don't seem to see as well at night. I start again, skimming the empty sled back down the tracks, trying to ignore the creatures surging around me. I fill 2 more sacks and load them on the sled. Step, pull, step, pull. Perry talks to me as I rest, my back against the side of the sled and my head in my hands, but I don't register what he says. When he finishes lifting the sacks up, I haul the sled back down to the water. I focus on the rhythm of work as much as I can, trying to pretend I'm in the quiet caves, stocking the storeroom, but it's not the same, not by a long shot. When I'm finally finished, I step out of the harness and stumble back towards the clearing. The creatures still follow, but there are fewer now. Perry follows too. I speed up when I reach the clearing. The trees on the other side are all that separate me from Aloe and Eland from safety. The flesh-eaters seem to sense my desperation as I near the caves. They encircle me again. Aloe calls from the entrance, and I dive into the darkness. She pulls me into her arms. Brave, brave girl, she croons, stroking my hair. I let her soothe me, grateful to be alive. The scent of death recedes as the scourge melts back into the forest. Perry, Aloe calls. Tell Breeze we'll collect our water at dusk. I'll tell her. I'll see you in the morning, Finn. The morning, when I'll have to do it all again. I crumple in Aloe's arms, and tears flow. I wake before dawn. I don't know how I know what the time of day is this deep in the caves, but I do. I give no sign I'm awake. I don't want the day to find me. Adder met Aloe and me in the passage as we came in last night, already hurling questions at me. Did I feel 6 sacks of water? How many of the flesh-eaters did there seem to be? Did I hear any Lofties other than Perry? Aloe guided me past him later, she said. Callie and Bear grabbed me next, hugging me to them. Eland drove into us so hard we all crashed to the stone floor of the cave. Our shout caused others to come running, thinking there had been a cave-in. Once I was seated, people brought me food and water. They touched me, speaking in whispers, sounding and reverential. My protection from the creatures were confirmed, and it gave them a new respect for me. Some asked questions about the scourge or about my keeper, and I answered as well as I could. But no matter what else they asked, everyone wanted to know the same thing in the end. Did the flesh eaters show any signs of leaving? The scourge typically stays for 2 or 3 days, but they could stay longer, sometimes even a week or more. The elders didn't speak of those times. A week. I'd been through one day. I won't think about it. One step at a time, 1 minute at a time. Before we fell asleep, Elon asked me what it was really like to face the flesh eaters. He seemed to sense I was holding back with other people, and he was right, but I wouldn't tell him the truth either, because the more I thought about it, the more shameful the truth became. I was afraid of the scourge and of my own fear, as Aloe had been, dreadfully afraid. The only thing that forced me to my feet was when I was crushed by my fear, persuaded me to move again when I was paralyzed by it. A lofty, oppressive, and superior. They kept us in our place, literally with their bows and arrows, but I wouldn't have done my duty without Perry talking me through it. I would have failed my people and myself. And what about Perry? He was kind, concerned, funny. Things Lofties aren't supposed to be. I'm not supposed to like him. So I told Elon a different truth. I told him Aloe was wrong. Protection from the scourge isn't the gift of our sightlessness. It's all part of the same curse. I think about this as he sleeps beside me, and I wonder how I will survive the day. Well, that's it, folks, for Chapter 2. I'll try to get another chapter up again tomorrow. Thanks for joining me, and thanks for listening. And I'll talk to you the next time. Bye-bye for now.